Welcome to Todd Talk. Today I'm going to read you a story about a first date.
Todd Talk is brought to you by Billy Buffet. Ask about our salmon.
I really wasn't sure what to do this month. So on my phone, I actually have a list of ideas. And basically, it's just dumb stories I tell people throughout my life. And I still have a bunch of them. But I also have some other ideas, like when I told you how I thought Star Wars should have gone. I have ideas about telling you about my favorites, or how other properties should have gone, or cool things I've done. But today I thought I'd read you a story. So I've done all kinds of creative things. I've played in bands, I've written stories, I've made movies, all kinds of stuff. If you want to check it out, go to todd13.com and you can see all of it. I just put it all up there and I think most of it's free. So back around 2010, I found myself unemployed for the first time in my life and in a very creative mood. Now, basically everything I've ever done, whether it's writing music or making movies, it's all telling stories. Now, the tricky part with music is it usually has to rhyme and, kind of follow a rhythm. The tricky part with a movie is you got to find the time and the people and the place to make it. And at this point in my life, the thing that I found interesting about writing is I could do it all by myself. Like literally, if you're just telling a personal story or you're telling a sci-fi epic, you can do it with no budget. And at this point in my life, I was writing a lot. I wrote a bunch of short stories, and every time I had a little batch of them, I would just throw them up on the internet, and you can download them on, Apple Books or Amazon or whatever your favorite book site is. And, to be completely honest, I hate writing. And like I said, it's very freeing. You don't have to have a budget or co-producers or a cast. You can do anything you want all by yourself. But man, it is a slog. It's a lot like exercise, where you have to kind of be disciplined and make yourself do it. Because like I said, it's not very fun. And, rereading the story and editing it and trying to be original with voice and words, it's just a lot. So anyway, I got to a point where eventually I wanted to write a novel, and I had a couple of pretty good ideas, themes and characters and a little bit of a plot. And then I found a job, and between the daunting task of tackling a novel and being busy, I kind of stalled out. And I keep a note with a bunch of plot and story ideas, but I just haven't done much with it. Now, all that to say, I did write a bunch of short stories. And a short story can be something you could read in a minute, or it might be something you might read in a day. Most of the short stories I wrote were horror adjacent, so they were either kind of interesting and freaky or scary. Sometimes they were a little bit funny, sometimes a little bit surreal. During this time when I was unemployed, I would hang out with other authors and things like that, and there were actually places, bars and cafes where they would do readings. And that sort of thing is kind of fun, because reading is usually kind of a very personal activity, but the idea of getting up in front of people and reading a story to them was very interactive and kind of fun. So today I'm going to read you a story called The First Date. It's very, very short, very, very weird. So here it goes. I like the word swimmingly. I liked it when someone said, "How did it go?" And you answer, "Swimmingly." This was not going swimmingly. This was quite the opposite. Drowningly? I thought her clipboard made her look pretentious. There was a big sticker on the back that read Delta Airlines. She was beautiful and impatient in equal parts. I'm more of a triple threat, I continued. The problem is I need to drink a lot to be any good at the third threat, and well, that sort of ruins the previous two threats, I smirked. She stared at me unamused for all of a minute. Do you even know what a triple threat is? She asked, her head slowly lobbing to one side. Yes, I replied. She squinted and leaned in closer. She looked as though she was trying to read words on my face. Do you? She scolded. Her persistence was unnerving. Her gaze was pointed. I wondered if this was even a good time for her. Yes, I repeated. How many states can you name? She asked as her eyes dropped back to her clipboard. All of them, I guess. Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona, Nevada. I suddenly regretted ever emailing her. I was so sure this would be fun, but all the wine we drank had basically ensured I'd either wind up looking like an asshole or an idiot. So far, I was leaning towards idiot. This was a bad idea. Being tied to a chair was a bad idea. She sighed. You forgot West Virginia. I'm pretty sure I said West Virginia. She looked at her cell phone. No, you didn't. I started to talk. You know, I can name a lot of game show hosts. Chuck Woolery, Pat Sajak, Bob Saget. It seemed so brilliant before I opened my mouth. Bob Saget was not a game show host, she snapped from behind the clipboard. But he was the host of a show. I can name a lot of show hosts, I further explained. The wine made me feel like I had a fever. I was sure she had been drinking too. Maybe not. My face was numb. She stared at me for a long time. Tell me, how many cheeses can you name? I thought for a moment, then a bit longer. Blue, provolone, Jack, Gouda, cheeses Christ. She pulled off her cowboy hat and began fanning herself as though she were warm in the room. She leaned way back in her chair. I could almost see up her skirt, but I didn't dare say anything. Jesus Christ, really? She sneered. I smiled a shameful and stupid smile. She made several quick marks on her clipboard, glanced at her cell phone, and gave me my clothes back. Do you have any questions for me? She asked. I had 1,000,000 of them. Are we going to have sex? What were those pills I took? What did you do with my wallet? I glanced at the back of her clipboard and, of course, asked the stupid question. Are you really an airline pilot? She looked up at me as though I had asked something important. No, she said. No, I asked. Yes, she said. Yes, I asked. Yes? Well, actually, no. I am, she explained. And that's how you write a story about an awkward first date. I can't remember how that even came about. I suspect I was dating at the time, and it's just one of those exercises in what could possibly go wrong. Anyway, that's among the shortest of the stories I've written. Many of them are much, much longer and actually have a plot. Anyway, let me know what you think. You can either go to todd13.com and download all my stories and read them yourself, or leave me a comment, and if you want me to read another story on here, I can do that too. And next month I'll tell you about all the times I've run into famous people when I'm drunk.